The Hells Angels are one of the most famous motorcycle clubs in the world, part of the One Percenter MC. The club first originated in California in 1948, with now more than 450 chapters in 59 different countries. It's safe to say that the Hells Angels are a force to be reckoned with. However, other motorcycle clubs don't always agree and do anything to charge and face the notorious Hells Angels. From setting headquarters on fire to a mass murder in a casino, these motorcycle clubs went too far with the Hells Angels. Number 7. The Vagos. The Vagos Motorcycle Club, also hailing from California, has a similar origin story to that of the Angels. The club was formed in 1965 and initially welcomed Vietnam War veterans and other misfits. Ex-veterans coming back home from war often sought their sense of freedom by joining motorcycle clubs. However, the Vagos were later labeled as the Mafia by a former informant who had infiltrated the club. The Vagos made a name for themselves in the criminal underworld, engaging in activities such as trafficking narcotics, money laundering, weapons trafficking, and general violence. As the motorcycle club expanded, they eventually came too close to the Hells Angels territory. And just like any other MC, everyone has their territory which is sacred for them. Getting into each other's territory is the start of a war. When this happened, the Hells Angels didn't hesitate for a second. In October 2001, a violent brawl erupted between Hells Angels and Vagos members in Costa Mesa, a city in Orange County, California, escalating into a chaotic and brutal fight where members of both motorcycle clubs didn't spare anyone. Weapons like handlebars and grenades were used. This incident was just the beginning of many battles, culminating in a shootout at a casino in Sparks, Nevada, about 10 years later. Known as the Nugget Casino shooting, this particular fight resulted in the death of Hells Angels San Jose president Jeffrey Pettigrew and the arrest of Vagos Los Angeles vice president Gary Rudnick. But the Vagos aren't the only ones who went too far with the Hells Angels. This was just the beginning of a brutal standoff of other MCs against the notorious Hells Angels. Number 6. The Pagans. The Pagans Motorcycle Club was founded in Maryland in 1957 and started off as a peaceful group of friends who drew inspiration from MCs in the UK and Europe. The original 13 members had a mix of American and British motorcycles, and they sported embroidered leather and denim jackets, giving them a distinctly European look compared to other clubs at the time. However, as the 1960s came to an end, these differences quickly faded away, and the Pagans adopted a more aggressive approach. Over the next 2 decades, they became associated with traditional organized crime families in various cities, including major ones like Philadelphia, New York, and Pittsburgh. Just like the Vagos, the Pagans were also forming a threat to the Hells Angels, as they were moving closer to their territory. And if there is one thing they cannot stand, it's coming too close. In the 90s, the Hells Angels made their move, targeting the president of the Pagans Philadelphia chapter and shooting him multiple times at close range. Although he survived, this initial attack sparked a series of retaliations. This meant war, big times. One notable incident was a raid by the Pagans on a Hells Angels-sponsored event a few years later, resulting in the death of a Pagan and the arrest of 73 others. The ongoing battle between the Pagans and the Hells Angels continued well into the 2000s and 2010s, with a temporary pause during the initial phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the two clubs have once again resumed their conflict, leading to casualties and prison sentences on both sides. We all know this feud will last forever. Number 5. Sons of Satan. Sons of Satan was originally a prominent central Pennsylvania motorcycle club with over 100 members from Lancaster County and surrounding areas. In the 1960s, the Pagans began moving north to central Pennsylvania, which led to a brief period of conflict between the two clubs. The conflict was resolved when Sons of Satan President John Marin and Pagans President Fred Dutch Burhans formally met and became close friends. Marone and several select Sons members quickly transferred to the Pagans, but the remaining Sons were allowed to continue with the club under Pagan's supervision. Malin was convicted of manslaughter and murder in the mid-1970s and subsequently imprisoned. Sons members wear diamond-shaped patches with the letter P on them, rather than the traditional 1% diamond patches. This is to show their pagan loyalty while maintaining their outlaw status within the biker community. But as they merged, disaster struck for Sons of Satan. On December 13, 2002, the Sons of Satan clubhouse was destroyed by a pipe bomb explosion while the building was unoccupied. Authorities believe the rival Hells Angels gang was responsible for the attack, but the incident has not yet been officially solved. The clubhouse was eventually rebuilt, but the suspicion remained. Was this a clear message from the Hells Angels, letting them know there is only room for one motorcycle club? Knowing that these are just smaller MCs, wait till you hear what the Hells Angels did to bigger clubs like the Mongols and the Bandidos, so stay tuned. Number 4. The Breed MC. Another one of the clubs for the wealthy elite, the Breed MC, was established in the 1960s. Originally based in Ashbury Park, a small coastal city in central New Jersey, the club quickly grew to over 3,000 members in the 70s. Their main focus was engaging in illegal activities such as drug dealing, extortion, theft, and witness intimidation. New chapters also emerged, with Breed members operating in New York, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. The club's boastful nature and the unruly behavior of some members caught the attention of the Cleveland chapter of the Hells Angels. By 1971, the two clubs were at war, and during the annual motorcycle show, the Angels struck first. Within minutes, 5 people were killed, and many more were injured in a coordinated knife attack. By the end of the night, the police had arrested over 85 people, with 20 requiring hospitalization. This battle at the 1971 motorcycle show was just the beginning of a series of fights between the Hells Angels and the Breed. In retaliation, the Angels even threw grenades at the house of the Breed's national president. Eventually, in 2006, the Breed disbanded due to mass indictments and internal conflicts among former members. Many believe that the ongoing feud with the Hells Angels played a significant role in the Breed's downfall. But let's discuss their everlasting feuds with the biggest motorcycle clubs out there, and how the Hells Angels react when you take things too far with them. Number 3. Mongols MC. The Mongols MC, based in Los Angeles, had numerous encounters with the Hells Angels over the years, one bigger and tougher than the other. As the Mongols grew in size and power during the 70s, the Angels took offense to them claiming California as their home state and adding a California rocker to their patch. This rocker was something the Angels believed they had exclusive rights to until that point. You know that patches are sacred, right? The unlawful use or abuse of their patches could get you in serious trouble. The conflict over the bottom rocker ignited a long-lasting feud that has spanned nearly 50 years. While there have been periods of peace and ceasefires between the two clubs, the Angels still view the Mongols as one of their greatest enemies. They have frequently come to blows, although most skirmishes involve only a few bikers from each side and often result in no serious consequences. However, there have been instances where both clubs have been responsible for larger outbreaks of violence. One notable incident occurred in 2002 during the Laughlin River Run, an annual motor rally in Laughlin, Nevada. This confrontation led to the deaths of 2 Angels members and 1 Mongol, earning the name River Run Riot. It is also considered the first mass murder at a Nevada casino. Number 2. Bandidos. The Bandidos, the second largest motorcycle club in the world after the Angels themselves, originated in Houston, Texas in 1966. The club's name was inspired by Mexican bandits and quickly attracted disgruntled Vietnam veterans, dock workers, and other members. By the 1970s, their numbers grew into the hundreds. Throughout the 70s and 80s, the Bandidos expanded across the United States and even reached Australia, establishing a Sydney chapter in 1983. This rapid expansion led to conflicts with various other clubs, including the Angels. However, it was their arrival in Europe that sparked an all-out war. By the early 1990s, the Bandidos had established chapters in Northern Europe, including Copenhagen, Denmark, Oslo, Norway, and Helsinki, Finland. In 1994, the Great Nordic Biker War began, a 3-year-long conflict over territorial claims that significantly impacted Europe's perception of motorcycle clubs. The war involved over 20 clubs, both large and small, resorting to extreme measures such as car bombings, drive-bys, and even stolen anti-tank missiles to settle their disputes. Tragically, the conflict resulted in the deaths of 9 bikers and left almost 100 wounded, including civilians and police officers. Although the Hells Angels and Bandidos officially reached a peace treaty by the late 1990s, occasional skirmishes between the two clubs still occur today. Members from both sides continue to face arrests on charges of assault and attempted murder in major cities across Europe and the US. Number 1. The Outlaws. The Outlaws, the most well-known enemies of the Hells Angels, have been in conflict with the California Club for as long as some of their members can remember. From the late 60s to the mid-70s, tensions between the two clubs escalated, resulting in the loss of lives on both sides. However, the biggest and most impactful fight took place in Canada, completely reshaping the reputation of both clubs for years to come. This conflict, known as the First Biker War, occurred between the mid-70s and mid-80s, originating from a territorial dispute in Quebec and Ontario. The war resulted in a staggering number of casualties, with 70 deaths, over 100 injuries, and more than 50 arrests. During this time, the Outlaws managed to assassinate Yves Buteau, the Hells Angels' first national leader in Canada. In retaliation, the Hells Angels launched a merciless campaign of targeted assassinations, effectively wiping out the Montreal chapter of the Outlaws. Eventually, in 1984, the two clubs signed an international peace treaty, solidifying the Hells Angels' victory and their expansion into Canada. On the other hand, the Outlaws maintained full control of Ontario until the early 2000s,